check out our new merch store at www.ShotOfFactsPodcast.com, where you can find our merch with shirts dedicated to each episode you love. Check it out today and support a Shot of Facts merch. So, welcome to A Shot of Facts. This is your girl, Deja Renee, and this episode is a shot of real estate with Denise Williams of Williams Co International Realty. Now, Denise Williams, or Denise The Broker, aka, is one
Yeah.
of the youngest real estate brokers in the US and the owner of Williams Co International Realty, which is a full service boutique real estate brokerage firm. Now, they offer brokerage services for transactions including or involving residential, commercial, and investment transactions. Now, also, their main focus is dedicated to bringing honesty, integrity, and specializing in providing detailed services to meet the needs of each unique customer that they have. So, Denise, how are you doing today?
Absolutely. I'm awesome. Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm just happy that you're here. You have the time to speak to a shot of facts about your business, overall real estate.
Thank you. Thank you. No,
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here and hopefully share some information that can be helpful to your audience.
Yes. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, my audience are, college students, recent
Mhm,
graduates, especially young Black adults who are looking into entrepreneurship ventures. So,
mhm,
I brought you on this show to especially discuss your journey to becoming a broker and how
mhm,
can another young Black adult get into this business as well. So,
mhm.
my first question to you is, how did you get into this career and what made you start into the real estate business?
Well, well, I guess let's go back to the beginning because it all started when I was young. Growing up, I was very poor. I was, one of six siblings. I'm the fourth oldest. And in that scenario, we're not going to get into all the details of it, but with regard to real estate, where I learned or had found a passion for real estate is the fact that I slept in a bunk bed up until 18 years old,
Wow.
because we just didn't have the income to have a lot of space. And so in that childhood or in those experiences and laying in that bed, I was so angry at times because I felt like I just didn't have any privacy. I felt like I just couldn't do my own thing. I couldn't talk to my boo at night. I couldn't sneak around. I had to, so, in that experience, it taught me that I definitely wanted to figure out how to gain access to wealth. And then in doing additional research after I graduated from college, and I checked all the boxes by getting a degree, by graduating with a high GPA, by pledging in a sorority. I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do in order to solidify a really, really great job. However, that didn't turn out to be the case. So real estate came up again, because what I did was I went online and I started to just look at different industries that were going to provide me with flexibility, that were going to give me really, really high sources of income or income potential. And, it really, really was just a really great fit. And if you also think about it, I mean, what millionaire or billionaire do you know that doesn't invest in real estate in some form or fashion? They may not be necessarily real estate agents, but they're going to touch real estate. It's a true way to wealth. And so, in realizing that and in doing my due diligence, coupled with my upbringing, I just knew that real estate was going to be a great career for me. And so, since 2012, when I got started, I haven't looked back since. So it's definitely been a part of my life for a while now, and I'm absolutely loving this industry.
I like how you mentioned that, most wealthy people do have multiple streams of income, and
Yeah.
real estate is a factor of it. And that's often something that a lot of young entrepreneurs want to get into, but they don't know how. They don't really
Mhm.
have the means necessarily right now to just
Yeah.
purchase a house or a property. Like, what would be some educational background information or just really ways to invest and save upon purchasing your first property or home?
Okay. So you want to talk about the home buying process for your primary residence?
Yeah, we
And
can talk about that
then
first.
okay, yeah. So when it comes to purchasing your very first home, there are three things as a young person. You said your audience is pretty young, so I want to make sure I break it down. When you are considering purchasing your very first home, because unfortunately, home ownership just isn't something that they teach us in college. It's just not.
Not
Um,
at
so a lot of time, right. So to give you a real life example of what happened to me when I was in college, I didn't understand credit in the way that I do now. And Domino's came to our campus. And what they were doing was they were passing out credit card for, let me run back. It was Discover that came to our campus. It wasn't Domino's, but they had Domino's coupons. So basically, they were giving out these coupons, but you had to fill out a credit card application in order to get a free large pizza. Now, I'm a broke college student. So, of course, I'm like, free pizza, bet. I don't have to eat ramen tonight. I'm down, So I filled out the credit card application. Unbeknownst to me, I got this credit card and I'm like, well, I actually applied for the credit card. I never actually physically got the credit card. What ended up happening was that it was fraud. And so my identity was stolen when I was in college. So I ended up going through this whole case and things like that, trying to get my credit and everything situated. But in that experience, my credit was damaged. There are so many people that have dealt with identity theft or fraud or just uneducated about credit and have made some bad decisions.
Those colleges, I mean, those credit card industries always come to colleges though. I never really correlated it with being fraud. Like, wow.
Yes,
I
yes.
just assume
So
like they just try to, get in
help
some
you.
people. Wow.
So right. And so that goes back to your employees. I'm sure Discover didn't teach those sales reps to go out and steal identities, but at the same time, they can't control who that specific individual is, and what they may do with that personal information for people. Because you literally had to put your social security number in. Here I am, I'm just young and trying to do the right thing and all of my correct information, address, phones. So I put everything because I didn't want anything messing up my ability to get that pizza. So just a mindset thing. So that was one of the experiences that happened with my credit. And like a lot of other college students, you might get those student loans and just sign on the dotted line because you never really read this thick packet of information that they give you regarding loans. All you want is the end result. All you want is that excess check, right? That's all you're concerned about. So we're not thinking about home ownership when we're 18, 19, 20 years old. We're only thinking about what's in front of us, which is school. And so that was a bad experience that ruined my credit. So I say that to say that credit is one of the pillars to home ownership. You have to protect your credit. There is no way around that. When it comes to home ownership, you have to hit a specific number that the lender will require in order to get that approval. The second aspect to credit or to home ownership is going to be your income. With your income, you're going to want to make sure that you obviously are making some type of income. Lenders prefer W-2 income. I know there's a wave of entrepreneurship, but when you are an entrepreneur, it is tougher to buy a home. The reason you might ask is like, well, why is that? It's because there's more risk on paper. So because like me, I'm a full-time entrepreneur, I don't get a W-2 paycheck. To the lender, that means I don't have guaranteed income. But if I work for a business or a corporation, they trust that a little bit more because you're having consistent income. So what I would encourage young people to do is still keep your 9-to-5 job, even if you are an entrepreneur on the side, so that when it comes to your approval process, it's going to be a lot smoother and easier for you. And you're going to be able to take advantage of, different programs, down payment assistance, things of that nature. And turning in your paperwork and getting that approval letter is going to be a lot more smooth than it is when you're an entrepreneur. Because as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to make sure, one, that you're claiming all of your income on your taxes. That's going to be one way. Or you can go the no doc route, but I'm not even going to talk about that on this podcast. That's another, that's a sidebar for another day. If you're making $1 million or more, call me. We can talk about some off the book type products that lenders offer. But if you're just going the traditional route, having that income documented, from a W-2 standpoint, boom, easy. So that's 2. The third piece is your debt to income ratio. This is one that I feel like people don't talk about enough. What your debt to income ratio basically is your lender assessing how much income you have versus how much debt you have. So if your debt is exceeding your income, that's going to lower your approval amount. If your income is exceeding your debt, then that's going to increase your approval amount. So you want to make sure that you have a lot more income than you do debt. So one of the things that people like to do, especially when they first get out of college, what do people like to buy as graduation gifts?
Cars,
right? It is so much easier to purchase a car than it is to purchase a house. So it's always wiser to put money towards a home if you can before purchasing a vehicle. because now that vehicle, if you have a car note and it wasn't a cash purchase, now that car note is going to be a part of your debt to income ratio. They're also going to account for rent or, whatever other monthly bills you might have. So making sure that your debt is low, credit card payments, student loans, all those things are going to potentially count towards your approval. So those are the three pillars I would say to focus on when preparing to purchase a home.
Now, I know it's some incentives that some states have, like Maryland, for example. I don't know if it's any other states that they pay up to 30K in student loans if you purchase a house for first-time homeowners. So, is there any other incentives for first-time homeowners in correlation to like student loan forgiveness or repayment?
Well, I'm not sure about that program being in Georgia. I haven't personally heard of it. 30K forgiveness. I mean, I might need to move up.
Like Maryland.
Yeah, that's a great program. But what we do offer here in Georgia, we have a program such as like Georgia Dream that allows up to $15,000 in down payment assistance. There are also programs out there specifically for doctors or nurses, or the HERO program. Since COVID, there have been more incentives for people who are nurses, doctors, teachers, anyone who's helped or been affected by COVID-19. We also have programs such as Invest Atlanta, but there are certain stipulations with all of these down payment assistance programs. So I want to just educate your audience just for a second about what that is, because I know that a lot of people think that down payment assistance is just such a great thing. And I'm not bashing down payment assistance, but I want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons to it.
Right.
Nothing in life is free. So I'll start with that. When you receive down payment assistance, there are pros and cons to it. The pros are obviously that you're going to be provided assistance and not have to come out of pocket so much with your down payment. That's really the biggest pro. The cons for the program is that you're going to be required to live in a specific area. So they're going to have area restrictions. So for example, there are 4 counties that are covered under the Georgia Dream program. If you don't want to live in one of those 4 counties, then guess what? You're not going to qualify for that assistance. The reason for down payment assistance is to drive economic dollars to certain parts of a city. So if they're not receiving, the taxes, the property taxes and income that they need as a city, then they'll start to put out incentives to drive more people to those areas. So if the city is thriving on its own, they're not going to really need people moving there with down payment assistance because their property taxes are covering their roads, their police, their things of that nature.
Right.
So that's one way to think about it. That is the reason why, the backstory, a lot of these programs are being offered, those incentives. The other thing that a lot of those programs have as far as stipulations is that you have to live in the home for a certain number of years in order to not have to pay that money back. So it is somewhat of a loan until you end up bypassing that those number of years. So for example, Georgia Dream is typically 5 years you need to stay in that property before you can relocate to another home or sell the property, or you will have to pay that down payment assistance back. The other kind can be that the interest rate on those down payment assistance programs is going to be a bit higher than it typically will be if you have your own cash. So those are just some things to consider. So over the life of the loan, you're really paying that down payment back through interest.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It's always a catch to the
Yeah. Yeah. So they're not giving it to you. They're just going to get it back from you a little bit later on.
That's just like student loans, essentially.
Exactly. They give it to you up front, but you pay for it in the long run. So,
yeah. Now let's gear more towards buying properties. Let's say you want to buy a building, you want to start a boutique or a clothing store or any type of shop. How can someone get into that industry, or knowing what to buy, where to buy it, pros and cons of purchasing buildings for service or things of that sort?
so basically something someone wants as an entrepreneur. So they're on office space or a hair salon, a commercial real estate is basically the question.
Commercial real estate.
So with regard to commercial real estate, there's a lot of red tape with regard to commercial real estate. And that's why it's not really talked about a lot. The number one thing that I see with people that are interested in investing in commercial real estate is that their paperwork isn't right. One of the things that commercial real estate does not really allow is new entrepreneurs to lease buildings or office spaces. They like to see that you have some tenure in your business and some income in your business. When you're a salon owner, for example, I talk to a lot of hairstylists who have been in business for years, or eyelash techs, or anybody that's, you know, making good money as an entrepreneur, makeup artist. What a lot of them have in common is that they are not documenting their income. When you don't document your income, it does not matter if you're popular on Instagram. When you don't look popular on paper, no one's going to believe you. So even though I might know you, sis, I know you got the Gucci, the Louis, the all of this, but in your bank account, you're not reflecting all those cash tips that you have received, all those cash payments that you have received, them PayPals and Cash Apps that you have in your acuity schedule. You need to make sure that those things are being tracked. I know that there are certain Style Seed and those different apps will actually track your tax income. You need to make sure that you're tracking and being able to document the income that you're actually making in order to get those spaces. That's the number one thing that I've seen with entrepreneurs, is just making sure that your paperwork is intact, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't even get their businesses incorporated. You know, when you go and talk about a commercial space, they want to see your incorporation docs. They want to see your profit and loss statements. They want to see your balance sheet, your income statement. They want to see all of those documents, your EIN number. You know, they want to see that you're an actual viable business. Another thing that people need to understand about commercial real estate is that it's not like an apartment lease. It's not going to be, you know, every year over year. It's going to be a 3 to 5 year term is typically how they start out. So you have to be ready and willing to commit to your business for 3 to 5 years, or to that overhead rather, for 3 to 5 years. A lot of entrepreneurs aren't ready to commit to an office space or a warehouse or things of that nature for 3 to 5 years.
The actual years of proof of employment or
Proof of
experience.
employment, proof of income. Yes,
That kind of correlates to why you need a business account too, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they're just
absolutely.
going straight off their personal accounts, and it's like that's not really a good
That's enough.
idea.
That's a huge, and so that, yes, that goes back to me saying like the paperwork isn't in order. How you're tracking your finances isn't in order. A lot of people are commingling their funds, meaning that they're putting business expenses, you know, paying for business expenses out of their personal accounts and vice versa. You need to separate your expenses. One, I ask entrepreneurs, because I do business coaching and consulting with small business owners as well. One of the things that I ask them is if they have a business bank account. And you would be surprised as to how many people do not have a business bank account. And so I asked them a follow-up question. I'm like, well, how do you know if your business is actually making money? So you're investing all this time and energy into a business that you don't even know if it's actually paying you or not, because you're getting money from PayPal, Cash App, you're doing this, you're doing that, you got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You can't even pull out or print out a spreadsheet to say how much money you made from your business in the month of November, October, September. You're not really running a business, you're running a hobby. So people have to stop avoiding the actual foundational steps of creating a viable business.
Right.
Think about this. The way you run your business is what it speaks volumes about how serious you take it. Because if somebody wanted to approach you and buy your business, would you be able to provide them the documentation that they need to make a decision on your business? If the answer to that is no, then you need to make sure that you get your paperwork in order. So hopefully that answers your question.
Call me out. No. I need to get it together. Okay. You just no, this is why I invite you on the show, because it's people like me and others who are trying to make their hobbies into a business, and they don't know the ins and outs and the ropes of actually making it to that business, having that documentation, even, you know, making it an LLC or incorporating it or trademarking whatever you have like that. These are all things that people don't really take into account, but then putting all their, you know, energy into this thing until somebody else can steal it from you, and you're out of luck.
Out of luck.
Going back into real estate, because I can go off into business with you.
Yes.
Going back into real estate, I wanted to ask you, what are the pros and cons of just renting versus buying, as well as someone who is young, just now starting their careers, or not really knowing if they want to settle down in the area or not?
Well, one of the things that I would tell people is to do your research on both, and don't just go into the hype with regard to the internet. Yes, I'm a real estate professional. So, of course, I've made the post about renting versus buying. You paying your landlord X, Y, and Z. But let's talk about the real pros and cons of renting versus buying, because it's really specific to your situation. There is really no right or wrong way to do it per se. So
Right.
let's talk about the pros and cons of renting. Some of the pros for renting. Sometimes I encourage my clients to rent before they buy if they're a relocation client. That's one of the situations where renting would be a pro, because if you're moving here from Maryland, you need to look around and find your place in Atlanta before you make a decision to purchase. Because one of the things that I don't want to do is make that decision for you. I may think an area is absolutely bomb, but you might move there and be like, this is a terrible area that, I'm living in. I don't want to be here. I hate it here, or I wish I would have lived on the other side of town because that's closer to the gym I like to attend. So renting to do research, there's nothing wrong with that. Another thing that you might do, there are some people who are, still very young, wild, and free, and they don't want to be tied to something for multiple years. A lease allows you the ability to try something out for a year and then try something else the next year. You can kind of move around. Some people just enjoy that type of lifestyle. So I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Now, so that's why I say it's based on your particular lifestyle. The
Right.
cons, obviously, to that is that it doesn't go towards equity. It doesn't go towards anything that you're building necessarily in the future. So, what I would say is if you want to continue to rent, at least look at other financial products that are going to actually couple with whatever business it is that you're doing to save and invest. So, find your financial planner to actually still be building wealth in some way, even if it's not through real estate. So I don't like to necessarily bash people based on their decision to rent over buy. It's just make sure that if you are doing that, that you're still not, also not investing in other things to build wealth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's sometimes with societal pressures,
Yes.
want to demonize people who rent,
Yeah.
especially once you get into your mid to late 20s and beyond. People are
Right.
like, if you don't own a house right now, what are you doing? It's like,
Right. Right. There's more than one way to
yes,
skin a cat. So,
yeah.
just make sure that you're putting your specific plan in place and building wealth the way that you want to do it. Real estate is not the only way to do it. It is just one of the great ways to do it. So that's the renting side. Now, on the buy side, obviously the pros to buying is the ability to accumulate wealth in most cases. If we deal with another scenario, 2007, 2008, then obviously real estate isn't necessarily
Right.
the best investment because it's very cyclical. So, real estate is going to be up one day, down the next day. So you have to, it's really a long-term investment. So there's going to be some cons in that too, because 1 year is up, 1 year is down, 1 year is up, 1 year is down. So you really, buying your first home is still not the only way to wealth. Even with purchasing a home, you have to make sure that you have additional investments in order to really build a nest egg. So I don't want you to necessarily think about buying a home as your end all be all either.
Right.
So a lot of people really get wrapped up into like, okay, I purchased my first home, like I did it, I've accomplished the American dream. You're still going to turn 65, and if all you did was buy a house, then I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not building wealth in your sleep.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it that way. Now, I absolutely love the real estate industry. I think that it is amazing when people, helping people to get into their home is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But like I said, just make sure that you're putting a specific plan in place for you and what you want your life to look like. Don't let anybody pressure you to do that. And when you do decide to get in this journey, be patient with the process. People get into this and they expect their experience to be like their aunts or their mothers or their sisters or their brothers. Be patient and listen to your realtor. We're the professional. Like, we're going to help you through this process. Like, we're not here to steer you wrong. In most cases, I can't speak for everyone, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you along that process. So it doesn't cost you anything to work with a real estate professional when you're purchasing a home. So I highly recommend that you speak to someone that's professional, not someone, just call me. Don't call nobody else, just call me.
Yes.
Plug, right? I've been saying,
Right. Yeah. The
so,
broker, okay. But let's talk about how, we mentioned commercial
uh-huh.
property, but also what about people who want to purchase homes to flip and sell them? How
Hmm.
can someone get into that niche industry?
So when you want to decide to flip a property, you do not have to be a licensed agent to do that. So let me just let you know that be known. A lot of people get into that industry as wholesalers first. That seems to be kind of the inroad to people that want to get into real estate, but not necessarily get their real estate license, but want to touch real estate and start possibly flipping or making money in real estate.
So what
So
exactly is
basically,
wholesaling?
I'm
And
sorry.
what exactly is wholesaling or being a wholesaler?
Yeah, so wholesaling is basically finding a property. So contacting a seller through different tactics. Say, for example, you have a seller that you call, you see that the house has been sitting for a while, you look them up in tax records, you skip trace their information and call them. All of us have gotten calls from random people, right? There's
Right.
obviously softwares and systems out there that you can invest in order to get someone's phone number. So you contact that seller and say, hey, I would love to purchase your property, say for $100,000, right? And they're like, great, okay, cool. You get that property, and they're cool with selling it for $100,000. Then me, I'm gonna go back out to my network of investors or realtors or whatever, and I'm gonna say, hey, I have this property for sale for $110,000. So now you found a buyer who was willing to pay $110,000 for that home that you have under contract for $100,000. So when you close, you as the wholesaler get that spread of $10,000. So you don't get the asset, you don't have any asset in the game, but you get the cash in the middle. So the buyer gets the property for 110, the seller got their 100,000, you get that $10,000 net.
Okay.
So that doesn't require a real estate license to do that. It is some red tape. And if you're a real estate professional that wants to get into wholesaling, I highly encourage you to talk to your broker, because you want to make sure that you're not violating any GREC rules by doing what GREC is, Georgia Real Estate Commission. So whatever your local real estate commission is, you want to make sure that your broker is aware of what you're doing with regard to investing, because there's a lot of red tape with that. Outside of that, if you're just someone who doesn't want to wholesale, but you just want to purchase your first investment property, you're just like, hey, I have some cash. How do I do it? What do I do? The first thing that you want to do, again, is real estate professionals can help you find your very first investment property. So that's the first thing that I would do. I would consult a local professional and see if they can assist me in that process. But you also have to have access to a pretty hefty amount of cash. First time investors, if you don't have any experience, typically you're going to have to leverage payment from hard money lenders or private lenders. So there are lenders out there that are basically not your non-traditional, not your FHA, not your conventional, not your VA, but there are people out there who will lend you money for your first investment property, but the down payments are significantly higher. So you'll be looking at maybe, between a 20 to 30% down payment on the property. So that $100,000 property, you're going to need about $30,000 for your down payment on the high end to put down on that property. The advantage to those lenders is that, yes, it's going to be higher interest rate because they're higher risk loans. They're also short-term loans, so they're not going to be loans that you can use for your primary residence. It has to be for an investment property, either a rental or a fix and flip. So the interest rates are going to be higher. They have lower credit requirements as well. So that's also why your interest rate is going to be higher. So you have to account for, now you're taking on a mortgage. I had an investor confused about why he had a monthly payment. It's like, no, you're still purchasing a home. So you still have to account for that overhead of having a mortgage during the process of actually renovating that property. So you're going to have holding costs. You're going to want to have costs for your construction, first leg of work, things of that nature. There's so many steps in this process. I don't want to go on and on and on too much, but I would just go back to saying, speak with a realtor in your area so that you get educated on what that process looks like. But you need to have some coins before you jump into investing. And it's not $5,000, $10,000. Like, you need to be ready.
Real coins. The real coins, y'all.
Yeah. Yes.
Now we did talk
It's
about
hard to do. You can partner up with somebody. You can come with
right.
15. They can come with 15, and you have your down payment, and then kind of go from there. It's all going to be contingent on the condition of the property and the purchase price of the property, because your rehab budget and your purchase price is going to dictate how much you need to put down and how much your monthly mortgage is going to be.
Right. And I do want to ask, because we did talk about this a little bit off the show, but about the rehab properties that are selling for very low prices,
Mm-hmm.
very enticing for young entrepreneurs to just, purchase these.
Ooh, $1.
Right. And then we don't know the stipulations all behind it. So Would it still be best to go through an agent or, a broker about buying those type of rehab properties, especially?
The properties that we were talking about offline were like the dollar properties and things of that nature are typically going to be tax sales. So those are going to usually be properties that are being sold by the county in which those properties are located. So going to auctions and things like that, you don't necessarily need a realtor to go to auctions. That's more of a public platform. That's where you get really heavily discounted properties, but you have to buy those properties cash. So you're not going to be able to use hard money or private money, or well, you can probably use private money. Private money can be anybody. It can be a friend of yours. It can be, family, business partner, whomever. So it have to be cash, out of a bank account in order to purchase those things. The only thing with auctions is that you need to make sure that you do your due diligence, because what can happen is you might buy the property for very, very cheap, but you might also be buying those encumbrances that are attached to the property, those liens that may be attached to the property. So if you buy a property, say for $1, like you hear about in the news or press releases and things of that nature, oh, Detroit is selling homes for $1. Well, the purchase price may be $1, but the liens attached to that property could be $50,000. It could be $100,000, and you're going to be responsible for paying off those liens. So basically, the original owner has given up on the property, and you're taking on all of the liens going on with the property, any issues that are going on with the property, if the roof is caved in, all those things. And a lot of times, you're buying these properties sight unseen because you don't really have the time to go and check out the property or whatever. You just getting focused on the cost of it. So I wouldn't say jump into doing any of those things until you have more experience. You have contractors that can actually help you, because that's another area that a lot of people, they only focus on like getting the cash together, but you need to really also think about building your team that's going to help you get through that project successfully. Because the real estate professional is not going to be your contractor.
Right.
Your contractor is going to really make or break your deal. So you need to interview some contractors as well when you're talking about getting into real estate investing, because that's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. A lot of people, even because I'm from Detroit too.
Mhm.
So I know a couple people who purchased those tax lien houses or auction houses, and they will say like it took probably a year for them to fix it up or more.
Yes,
And it's
yes.
still not to, the standard that's supposed to be. So yeah, it's a lot
Mhm.
of backstory behind buying those cheap houses,
Yes.
sure. But
Keyword is due diligence.
yes, yes. But let's go into your book now, From Broke
Okay.
to Broker. So can
Okay.
you explain to the readers, yes, explain to the listeners, potential readers, what is the book about and what could we gain from reading it?
Absolutely. So, From Broke to Broker is basically an autobiography about my life. As you can see, I'm young and fly.
Yes.
But and one of the questions that I used to get or still get all the time is, we're all asked, what do you do, right? What is your career? People ask that question all the time. And when I answer, and my response is that I own my own real estate brokerage, their faces always light up, or like, oh wow, really? Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, how old are you? Or those are usually the follow-up questions, or how did you get into that? Because real estate is a very sexy industry.
Right.
Everybody talk about it. Everybody wants to be a part of it. It's just a really cool industry to be a part of. So to be young and to actually own a firm is not really that heard of. I mean, I haven't necessarily met another broker that looks like me in this way as far as age and just, experience and things of that nature. But I'm sure they exist. I just haven't necessarily met them yet. But I wanted to put something in writing to help people and show them my journey, to show them that like I literally had to go through a whole lot of different experiences in order to get to this place, but it can be done. And that to me is the ultimate goal. I want to show you like how to get through issues and continue to push forward. In this book, I really talked about some things that I never, like some of my closest friends didn't even know about me. Because I think when you go through trauma in life, a lot of times we try to suppress it and we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to tell people about our struggles or the things that we've gone through. We just want them to see the glory. I just want you to see me on Instagram popping. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
all I want you to see. But I realized that that wasn't helping the world. And my goal and my mission in life is to help the world. And that's why I do these podcasts, because I can reach people all over. I can share my message all over. So in this book, that was my way of reaching the world and just showing people that you can do it. Like, don't let your circumstances prevent you from being great. But coming from, growing up poor, like I mentioned earlier, to becoming a single mother at a very young age, to relocating to a city, didn't know what to do at all. So there's just a lot of different phases that I feel like a lot of different people can relate to, not just women. Like, I didn't write this book for women specifically, although women tend to relate because I'm a woman, they're a woman, but it's also helped a lot of men as well, to show them, like, listen, as a man, you're going to go through certain circumstances, and I understand the weight that you may have on your shoulders as being a man, but even through that, push through. And at the end of the book, I even share marketing tips. I even have goal lists in there, my favorite affirmations. So I really poured a lot of my heart into this book. So hopefully you'll go check it out at denisethebroker.com. It's entitled From Broke to Broker, and I love it. So, New York Times bestseller. I've been saying that every day. I'm going to sell 1 million copies or more. So
Yes.
help me get to that goal.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out, giving out all those tips, all this insightful information about just becoming a real estate investor. Like, you helped me, so I feel inspired. Feel inspired.
That's always the goal.
But my last question, very last question to you is, do you have any last words of recommendation, advice, or just last tips to give to the listeners?
Absolutely. I will leave you guys with a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. And it is, you can't deposit excuses. You cannot. So you go to your bank account and do you hand them a check or do you hand them an excuse? You can only hand them a check. So you want to make sure that you're not allowing your excuses. Don't allow life, don't allow bad partnerships, don't allow bad relationships, don't allow life circumstances to prevent you from becoming the person that you want to become. Because when you do that, or you allow those self-doubts to hold you back, you're going to look back years and years and years from now and regret it. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Don't be afraid of failure, because a lot of people just don't want to look failure in the face. They just don't. Nobody likes to fail at anything. It doesn't feel good. But I can't tell you how many times I failed. But in order to do that, you learn so much, and you're going to be so much better on the other end of it. So don't give up, guys. Like, stop giving yourself excuses and push through this thing. Let's make this money.
Let's make this money. Look, one thing I always like to say, like, consistency is key.
It is
Like,
key.
you can go very far in life by being consistent.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, but overall,
It is.
yes, right. As hard as it is, it's very hard. Look, if it was easy, everybody be doing it.
Everybody would be doing it. Yes.
Well, yes, my actual very, very last question to
Mhm.
you is, where can we find you? Website, social media, or any type of way we can get in contact with Denise the Broker?
Absolutely. So my website is denisethebroker.com. You can find me there. I have contact information, email, phone number, and on all social media platforms, Denise the Broker. So at Denise the Broker on Instagram, Denise the Broker on Facebook, and Denise the Broker on YouTube. I don't have a Twitter yet. I'm gonna get a Twitter. I feel like I'll be super distracted if I get a Twitter, because my boyfriend sends me tweets and I will end up just scrolling for hours if I get a Twitter. So funny. But yeah, you can find me on those platforms. I would love to connect with you guys. So yeah, thank you. Thank you again for having me, Deja. I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you overall. This was a shot of real estate. I feel inspired. I feel like I need to save up my coins right now. And
Yeah.
oh, just thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, and I will talk to you later.